Hey everybody, Michael Fabiano here, Sports Illustrated Fantasy, and we are 4 weeks into the regular season, and it's been kind of a wild ride so far, and a lot of folks out there need help on their fantasy football rosters. So to get that help, let's bring in Jen Piacenti. And Jen, the quarterback position has become very thin this season, so I can't believe we're saying this, but pick up Geno Smith.
Yeah, pick up Geno Smith. Maybe you don't start him this week. It's not a great matchup, but Geno has now finished as a top 7 quarterback 2 weeks in a row. And here's the crazy thing. He leads the NFL right now with the best completion rate, 73.3%. This weekend versus the Lions, he threw for 320 yards and 2 touchdowns while adding another 49 yards and a rushing touchdown. And he finished with the best passer rating as the QB2 behind only, of course, Jared Goff on the other side of this, which hopefully, if he's available, you can add him as well. But Geno is the more available quarterback. Now, another interesting development, it's time to put those claims in for Kenny Pickett. Now, I'm talking more about Superflex leagues or for future bye weeks. But Pickett was brought into the game after halftime. Mitch Trubisky just wasn't getting it done. Mike Tomlin said he wanted a spark, so Pickett came in. What was interesting is he rushed for 15 yards and 2 touchdowns, and his average depth of target was 13.2. So he was moving that ball downfield. Ultimately, that's going to be better for all of our fantasy weapons. Now, he did throw 3 picks, so don't get too excited too fast. But Pickett is someone you should put your bids in for now because he's still available in 97% of leagues.
Yeah, not a great matchup this week against Buffalo, but moving forward, potentially a guy that you can use. Teddy Bridgewater also worth a look this week against the Jets. Let's go to the running back position, and it is thin. But at least we've got a couple of options due to injuries for week 5.
Yeah, we do. Well, let's start off first with the running back who's about 50% available. So in a more shallow league, you may still be able to get RAHEEM MOSTERT. Now, we had a player prop on RAHEEM MOSTERT for this week to exceed 38.5 rushing yards because we noticed the trend that he was getting way more of the early down work as compared to Chase Edmonds. So though Chase Edmonds has been getting a lot of the scores, they've actually split the goal line carries, and Mostert is getting more of the early down work. So it seems like he is the guy that's slightly leading this backfield. He's also been more efficient, 3.77 yards as per carry as opposed to Chase Edmonds' 3. He also was used in the 2-minute drill this week. So you may want to grab Mostert, especially with Tua Tagovailoa. Questions about his health, they may need to lean more on the run game. You could also put in a claim for Brian Robinson, who should be returning soon. We all know he was great in the preseason. Then, of course, unfortunately, the injury with the shooting, but he should be back soon. And Antonio Gibson's snaps are going down. But most importantly, take a look at Mike Boone. Unfortunately, we know Javonte Williams is out for the season. Once Williams left the game, he actually out-snapped Melvin Gordon 9-7. He carried the ball 3 times for 20 yards and caught one of his 3 targets. He'll probably be the passing down back. I expect Gordon to still get the goal line carries, but Boone is someone you may want to add in the situations where he's had more than 50% of the snaps. It's only happened 3 times in his career. He has averaged 15 fantasy points per game. And of course, we just heard they signed Latavius Murray as well, so you may want to take an ad for Murray in deeper leagues. It's just a bit of a conundrum here, but that's where I would go this week.
The good news for Gordon this week, though, is that they've got the Colts, and Shaq Leonard's not going to play. So that's a good matchup for Melvin Gordon. He just needs to not fumble the football. Tyler Algier, also another great play as an ad. Cordero Patterson on the injured reserve list with a knee injury. And then don't forget about Nyheim Hines. He could be floating around out there in some less competitive leagues with Jonathan Taylor banged up. Now let's move on to the wide receiver, where there's actually some pretty good options that are available, Jen.
Yeah, I'm going to start first with George Pickens. Now, we talked earlier about how Kenny Pickett's going to be taking over at center, and that is only good for George Pickens. Pickens was targeted 33.3% of the time on his routes this weekend once Pickett entered the game. Now, he had only been targeted 12.9% of the time in his previous 3 weeks. It resulted in 6 grabs for 106 yards. He played 75% of the snaps this weekend. He's tied with Chase Claypool on targets for the season. I think Pickens leapfrogs with Kenny Pickett under center. Next up, I know we always talk about running back handcuffs, but guys, maybe we need to start getting wide receiver handcuffs too, because Josh Reynolds was the perfect handcuff this weekend, but there's a lot more that I like as well. This weekend he went 7 for 8 with 81 yards and a touchdown. He finishes the wide receiver 9. But here's what's interesting. He's run no fewer than 30 routes per week, and he leads the team with the 71% catch rate. He's played 78.6% of the snaps this year, and remember, he and Goff have really good chemistry. He also has the biggest depth of target.
Romeo Doubs, also a guy that you can look at. Probably in most competitive leagues he's gone, but he could be floating around out there. Michael Gallup of our beloved Dallas Cowboys could be out there. And with Jamison Crowder out, Isaiah McKenzie could end up being a guy you use in the long term. He also suffered an injury last week, but keep tabs on his status. The Bills wide receivers are a little bit banged up right now. Let's move on to the tight ends, where we have a guy who's got a revenge game coming up next.
Yeah, we talked about Hayden Hurst a couple of weeks ago, but he's back on the list because somehow he's still 80% available, and tight end is a thin position. Listen, Hayden Hurst actually has run the most routes of all tight ends this season, 132, and he has a 72% route participation rate. His 21 targets rank 6th in the league, and his 13% red zone targets, that's more than Tyler Boyd and Joe Mixon have had. And as you mentioned, this week he gets the Ravens. Finally, if you want to take a dart, and this is definitely a dart, you could throw one at Mo Alley Cox. I mean, he's sort of in a 3 tight end situation. We were all looking at Jelani Woods for those 2 touchdowns, but guess what? Mo Alley had him this weekend, 2 touchdowns in this game. His 3 red zone targets are tied with Pierce and only behind Michael Pittman, but he's actually the one on the field for 60% of the snaps, so he's just maybe going to get in the end zone more often than the other 2 tight ends. Again, this is a dart throw or maybe a stash for your bye weeks.
Another player to target, Will Dissly. Yeah, I mean, he's got 3 touchdowns so far this year. I don't love him this week, but tight end is thin, so Will Dissly is now on the map, even more valuable than Noah Fant. Thanks, Jen, as always. Great stuff. And everybody out there, if you're looking for the best waiver wire information, starts, sits, whatever you need to win your fantasy football championships, or maybe take home a little money in terms of player props and wagering, make sure you check out si.com/fantasy, si.com/betting. And by the way, hit that subscribe button on YouTube.